within a year of that contract, Bitcoin started being worth like £30,000 per Bitcoin. But it meant that what I was initially paid for this contract for the year, because I took a yearly sum up front for me to take on this project, I ended up being paid like
This man, like, Dan, come on, welcome to Melodical and Proud.
I think at that point in my life, I want to say to anyone young, like within your early 20s, 18, like graduating uni, during uni, I think everything that I do now in my life has been from me bouncing around and just kind of figuring out at the beginning what I enjoyed. So at GiftGaff, I learned that I enjoyed community. I enjoyed that element of networking, really. And then the content creation, I've realized that I really like. I took that to my next job. I learned more things about different elements of the work. I took that to my next job, and then I slowly started curating and creating my perfect role for myself. So now I do all of the bits that I enjoy without like the BAUs, as I call them, that keep a business going, that I didn't really enjoy. So I would say there was never, I knew what I enjoyed doing, and so I kept going for these types of things that would make me happy, and just exploring about how I was really open-minded about how a job made me feel. And I freelanced for a really long time, maybe like 2 years, but in that time I managed to secure some really, really cool clients. Ones that
name drop?
No, because there's loads of like NDAs and stuff involved. Because a lot of the time clients don't want people to know that they are freelancing, like they're hiring out. They kind of want people to think it's all in-house a lot of the time. But one company, one sector, I should say, that I worked in was quite early in the rise of Bitcoin, before it became the current phenomenon. There was first surge, and I remember I used to do a lot of like just LinkedIn searching and communicating and connecting, and I connected with a company, a CEO of like a small mining group in DC, Washington. And within a night, we were just chatting, and I was like, oh my God, yeah. And they were really interested in breaking Bitcoin across the globe. It was very, very new at the time. And I remember within like a day, I had a ticket booked to go to Washington, and I was kind of closing a contract that I had. So I remember I closed the contract, and a week later I was on a flight. It was over Christmas. I was like, why not? Let me go.
Wow, that's
and
crazy.
then and then I came back, and I remember I was freelancing, and I had a couple of friends helping me. And I remember before I went to Washington, I was like, I think I wanna come back with the money in my pocket. And she was like, do you think it's gonna happen? And I said, I have a feeling it's gonna happen. And they were like, how much are you gonna charge them? Now, at the time, I was dating somebody, and he suggested get them to pay you in Bitcoin, right? So I had been paid X amount of money, what it was worth at that time in Bitcoin, which was a lot of Bitcoin, because Bitcoin back then was worth what, £1,000, £2,000 per Bitcoin. And within a year of that contract, Bitcoin started being worth like £30,000 per Bitcoin. But it meant that what I was initially paid for this contract for the year, because I took a yearly sum up front for me to take on this project, I ended up being paid like so much more. And then luckily again, I had a flatmate.
That is so good. Sorry, I'm trying to stay calm.
Right. It was just, you know what, it was just luck and timing. Like, honestly, just luck and timing, and me listening to what the people around me. Luckily, I have always been surrounded by people that are really positive for me. And for example, even right after we had all this Bitcoin and it was incredible and it was like, yeah, it's worth so much money. Remember my flatmate, I used to live with this guy, and he was like to me, Layla, he used to be Irish. He was like, Layla, there was this massive thing in Ireland where everyone was buying this property and it was like a booming market, and then one day it just crashed. He was like, if I were you, I would, like, this thing has been rising for so long, there's bound to be a crash. So think about how you're reinvesting this thing. And I was just like, okay. And then I remember I took that conversation back to the same friends and the partner that I was with. And then that night we just decided to pull like 80% of the Bitcoin and just sell it for what it was worth at that point.
Yeah.
No word of a lie, like 2 days later, the market crashed. And then it took a really long time to recover up until this current surge of it being worth up to however much. But this was a couple of years ago. Now it just meant that I didn't have to, I just listened to what my flatmate at the time said. Yeah, so that was kind of like that experience. And then what I will say is you end up being a young person with a lot of access to...
You can't just move on. That was an insane story. Like, gosh.
Yeah, no, it was crazy. I think about that and I'm like, wow, that really happened, didn't it? Like, that really happened. And
it's good that you kept coming though.
Yeah. It was kind of like we took them and we just kind of forgot about them, in all honesty. Like, they weren't really, I had moved on because I did that contract, and then it was kind of like boring to me. I'd done what I needed to achieve there for them. I managed to get them like global contracts and stuff, and it was booming, and it had done what I said I would do. And I decided that, this is done for me. And then I remember at the time, a friend of mine was hiring for a position, and I kind of joked saying I should apply. She was like, send in your CV, and I sent it in. And one thing about me is I have really bad anxiety. So I remember messaging her and saying like, no, I don't. On the morning of, I was like, I just don't think I'm the right candidate for this. It was completely different to what I had been doing all this time. It had nothing to do with, it was more so focused around community and networking. It was like a job that was like about networking and connecting people. And I was like, I've never done this before. I don't know what this is, but I was kind of bored of freelancing at this point. And working for myself and working from home and not in an office space. It was kind of like you get to a point where now I appreciate being able to work from home and by myself and stuff. But when you're that young, I felt like it was quite depressing for me. So I found that maybe for my mental health, I needed to get a job that meant I was connecting with people and really talk, and not just in my flat by myself. Just my flat is my office, is my everything. And I lived quite secluded from all my friends where I had moved. And it was just like, no, I don't want to live in this way. I don't want to work in this way anymore. So I kind of restructured that. And I remember she was like, just come in, have a talk with them and see if they like you, then they'll give you like a second interview or whatever. And then they offered me the job. Now, I went into this job not realizing that it was like a travel heavy job. So what the actual job was, I was a networking manager for a conferencing company. Now, my job was to connect people, so the CEOs of every major company that you can think of, with other CEOs or other people that they want to meet and connect with, essentially giving me access to every important person you can ever think of on a global basis. And I would have to travel around the world. Yeah, so like if you're thinking pharma, it's your Pfizer's, your any like Novartis, all of these, Glaxo, whatever you can think of, all of them are people that I had worked with like on a one-to-one basis. And if you think about like Facebook, YouTube, all of these spaces, they would come to our conferences, and it was my job to work with the highest paying sponsors, making sure that they had a good time and meeting and connecting with business worthy people. So one, I got to learn about what they were working on, what their interests were, and then built relationships with them and the people that they were interested in, which meant that if ever I wanted to do anything, I have direct access to I have a
Yeah.
database full of like all the CEOs everywhere. And the fun part of it was I traveled everywhere. Like they put on conferences, they put about 30 different conferences around the world. We traveled everywhere to the point where it got to the end of the year and you were like, I don't want to see another plane. Right. There was like 1 month, I think the months even that I remember I flew from London to Washington and then Washington to Vegas. And then Vegas, I flew from Vegas to Brussels. But in between, right, so from Vegas, I came to London, had my friend meet me at the airport so I could swap suitcases so that I could fly to Brussels and then like carry on around Europe for like multiple other events and conferences that I were doing. Again, just another crazy experience that meant that for like 2 to 3 years, I was just like globetrotting and experiencing different parts of the world. And really, when I reflect this particular job, it was really aligning me for what I do now. Because when I then left, I then went on to have my daughter, which kind of leads us to where I'm at right now. And my daughter being born with sickle cell disease. And then me deciding that I wanted to start a charity that focused on that and then the mental health element of it. It meant that actually every single thing that I had done, all of this work in connecting people, all of this working with major brands and stuff, gave me the exact skill set that I needed to start something that would be successful in this way. When it comes to funding, for example, I already know all of the major pharma companies personally, and me talking to them and me having my funding applications accepted are completely different to, say, if somebody who doesn't have that relationship with them, they would have to start from the beginning of building that, getting them to trust them where they already know me. They've worked with me from pharma side, and now they're just working with me through community investment side. As well as the just networking and building and growing the charity. I can really look back and reflect and see just how the grand plan was always going to be leading me to exactly where I'm at right now in life.
Yeah, that's very interesting because like you said, it's kind of just like positioned you into your current place right now. And I'm running out of words to describe you as like Miss International, Miss Miss Innovator. Like you're just like the woman of the moment, man. Like it's very interesting hearing how you've literally taken your time to explore, because a lot of people won't be willing to like take risks, or they might feel complacent, like they have to stay in certain roles or positions. But even with you and the Bitcoin, that's through you networking on LinkedIn. A lot of people are very hesitant with speaking to people on LinkedIn. They might not believe in some of the schemes or whatever that they're offering. I'm one of them, I can't lie to you. And so it's very interesting how that works out for you as well. And obviously your daughter having sickle cell, that has shaped you as well. And so it's definitely created some sort of passion for whatever it is that you're doing right now. And so I want to ask you, like, what sort of challenges do you face along the way?
I think anxiety for me, all of it sounds like I just kind of do it, which I do to some degree. I just kind of decide, like, I'm open and free with myself to explore what I want to do, but I am a very anxious person, and I have very much walked away from a lot of different opportunities because of my anxiety, and it's something that I've gotten so
you're gonna
much
have
better
even more
with.
opportunities. You're gonna have even more opportunities than you've had already. Gosh.
Yeah, like who knows? Sometimes I think like there's been times where I have interviews, I have pitches to make, and I'll just talk myself out of it, and I'll be like, no, this isn't for me, or I just don't think I'll be good enough for this, or it's like there's a lot of it's a mind thing for me. I think my biggest barrier isn't that I'm not talented or that I don't know these things about myself. It's more so the voice that's talking to me and how it's making me feel at that moment in time, and which voice I choose to believe, really. I think these mental hurdles of back when I was younger, it was a lot of, look, what have I got to lose at this point? I didn't have a child. I wasn't, like, a lot of time I wasn't in a relationship or anything, or I was with somebody who was really supportive, and I could just do it. And it was like, why not? I've not got anything really that is stopping me right now. I think security is what a lot of what you mentioned earlier. A lot of us aren't willing to tamper with our security. Because if I have this job and it pays my bills, why would I leave it to do what I need to do? But sometimes you kind of need to listen to yourself. Something that I've learned, especially over this year and the decisions I've made, the charity and the creative agency I launched this year, and I was working corporate. I was that corporate travel around the world job that was incredible stability, very well. Like, I was there for a couple of years. I was very set. I was one of the bricks, I decided that with nothing else planned, I was going to leave, and knew that everything in my being was telling me it's time to leave there, and you're kind of ready for the next step, and you won't achieve what it is that you want for yourself if you're holding yourself back. Yeah, I think in a lot of everything that I've done, it's really weird to take a step through, because this is the first time I've actually sat down and thought, oh my god, I did this and then I did that, or oh my god, like, wow, I have done so many different things that have shaped me. And I think a lot of it is I am so blessed in terms of I'm not afraid to fail. One thing that I got into myself at a very one of the contracts that I had actually had me writing a lot at the very beginning. Used to have me writing a lot of like positive pieces and doing research into like successful people and their mindsets. And people like Richard Branson and all of these people are like, one thing you can't be afraid to do is fail, because failure is actually the key to succeeding. And so I anticipate failing in everything that I do. I anticipate and welcome those failures, because then I know where I need to change and adjust. And like, if it's a process that I'm working on currently, I'm working on like developing this thing, and it's like, okay, well, how do I make sure that I fail early, and then I can fix those failures, so that by the time I have a program or a portal that can support thousands of people, actually I failed when I had 10, and fix those gimmicks and fix those gimmicks and fix those gimmicks. Whereas I feel like that's one concept that I carry for myself. Again, I'm very blessed that if I did fail and I lost everything, I kind of know, I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to move back in with my parents for a little bit, and it's not the end of the world, and I have so much, I will never go hungry. Even though sometimes I have gotten to places where I'm like, well, if this all goes to my language, then you're going to find me under a bridge somewhere. And again, not afraid to, I think it's when I know, and there's certain times that when you're building yourself, you know what you like, everything in the universe will tell you that do it, it's gonna be fine. And I've done stuff like I've invested a lot. Like, there's been times where I've invested my last penny into a concept, and all I need now is for it to come to fruition, because otherwise I will be under a bridge. But then it happens because why wouldn't it,
That's very inspiring and very like powerful. I'm not hearing fear at all. If I'm honest, I'm hearing fearless. Like that's genuinely what I'm gaining from this
Well,
conversation.
just
Like
thank
I'm
you, thank you. I hope the episode has brought some, positive vibes to you and learning. But yeah, I think we're all going through an incredibly tough time. So stay safe, make good choices, and yeah.